All right, we're live now. Welcome,
We are.
everyone. Purse Strings coming to you live. We are zooming into our 50 plus and fabulous group and in LinkedIn. So, what's terrific is that now we are streaming into our LinkedIn Purse Strings page. And every Monday, we do a Facebook Live with a Facebook group, which is the 50 plus and fabulous group. And our dear friend Kim has given us this time slot so that Purse Strings can bring to her audience uh, all things financial. So we use this time slot to present our one of our Purse Strings approved professionals. Today it's Roger Silvera. So we're glad we're here. You're here and coming in from sunny and hot Florida.
Yes, yes, yes.
And just an overview of Purse Strings is we provide free online tools and resources for women so that they can make the right financial decisions for themselves and their families. And more than that is we scour and look for top tier financial professionals who want to serve a female market. And we're bringing you today Roger, who's one of our Purse Strings approved professionals. And he's going to talk about if I need care, who will be there, which is such an important topic.
Yeah.
So we're so glad you've taken some time out of your busy schedule, Roger, to share with us today, with Kim's 50 Plus and Fabulous group, and with our LinkedIn following on this very important topic.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Barb and Maggie. I really appreciate it, and always a pleasure to serve the purse strings community and obviously give some insight into these very relevant and top of mind topics. Nowadays, obviously, these are things that people are grappling with, specifically women, and dealing with a loved one. You know, it's sometimes it's been challenging for people. In terms of the unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they want, where do they want care? How do they want to receive care? Those types of things. These are all questions that many of our clients are grappling with their own parents, but it's also specific to them as well.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this is a very hot topic that I think we should shed some light on today. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so important because women will age alone. Typically, all the stats will tell us that. And when they have their, at their, when they age, their health and welfare
Mhm.
oversight is really expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
there's some critical decisions that need to be made. So,
Yep.
Purse Strings we're all about planning and getting in
Mhm.
front of any of these issues. And the way we get in front of it is we talk about it. If we're not talking about these important issues, we're not learning about it. So,
Absolutely.
perfect timing for this very important topic. Maggie, I'll let you do the formal introduction.
All right. Well, today we have Roger Silvera. He understands with many options and complex information, making financial decisions isn't always easy. That's why he's here to help you understand what's best for you.
Mhm.
Together, he helps you create a strategy that's customized to your needs and goals. He believes that you're in this together for the long haul, so you can really count on him to manage and update your approach as life changes. So, Roger, we're so excited to have you here today, and I'll give you the floor.
Thank you so much. Well, first and foremost, ladies, I want to tell you thank you for allowing me to have this platform and to share these insights. I don't take it lightly, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's well on this Monday afternoon. Again, by way of background, my name is Roger Silvera. I'm out of Tampa, Florida, and one of the Purse Strings approved advisors. And today's topic is really centered around the impact of long-term care and long-term care planning, specifically for women. And the aspect is multidimensional. All right, there's a lot of things that go into really developing a long-term care strategy. Now, when we think of long-term care, a lot of people will say, "Well, I think of insurance as, you know, um, an option." I was like, "Well, that's one of the options." But it's not just insurance; it's really true planning that we need to make sure that we're doing and to ensure that things that we want to happen will happen. And so a lot goes into it. You may have had experiences with loved ones, parents, grandparents, for that matter, that may have needed care. So this topic might be relevant and timely for you, specific because you're going through the situation or have gone through it, right? So I'm going to share my screen here and walk everyone through a couple of different nuances to this. And I think it's important. And we'll also take a look at the costs in retrospect to a specific area in the country. So you can kind of get to see really, and a lot of people will ask, well, what is really the true cost of care in today's environment? And obviously every part of the country is different. We're going to take one area today, Chicago, that you guys can see everything in relevance to the costs for different areas of care. So let's take a look at this specifically. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. And can everybody see my screen? Give me a thumbs up or say yay.
It's a yay.
Okay, good. Awesome. So here's an aspect that we want to consider: why women should create a strategy for long-term care. And I'll paraphrase here a couple of things here. It says preparing for long-term care can be a critical piece of the retirement puzzle. And not only just even the retirement puzzle, but overall quality of life. And there's not one person on this earth that doesn't value quality of life, especially for women, as they're more likely to benefit from creating a long-term care strategy due to a variety of reasons. And so it says here, including the simple fact that on average, women live longer than men. Okay, and longevity risk is very real, right? Technology in healthcare and medicine has seen, the average life expectancy go from mid 80s to well into the 90s and even to the hundreds. Below, we'll review some of the main reasons why long-term care is often called a women's issue, and why it's important for you to discuss long-term care with, obviously in our case with our clients and our prospective clients, but also from the standpoint of making sure that that you have discussions amongst your family as well. Okay, this is a family type of thing that I believe that this is not just one conversation that you have alone with yourself, but again with your husband or your family. That can include kids, grandkids, whatever case may be. Getting everybody on the same accord is going to be very, very critical. So it says here, key reasons why women are more than likely to benefit from having a long-term care strategy. So it says here, longevity, right? Women live longer than men. A couple stats to consider, right? On average, women have a life expectancy of about 5 years longer than men. So they did these stats here. It says here 81 years for women and 76 years for men, right? This increases the chances of needing assistance with activities of daily living. Now, let me break that down so that everyone knows what activities of daily living are. There are 6: eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, and continence, right? Eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, and continence. So to qualify for long-term care, like specific through insurance, we have to have 2 out of the 6 completely impaired, right? And then that you're underneath the care of a physician, right? So it could be a combination of eating and bathing. So, for example, people say, well, I'm very healthy and I don't know if I'll ever need long-term care. I was like, well, we hope you never need it. But the aspect is, even if you think it's, more end of life, which it really isn't, because a lot of the long-term care scenarios that we see stem from sickness, right? Versus injury, versus somebody getting sick versus somebody, slipping and falling. That's really where a long-term care scenario can really come through, right? And so it could happen to anybody. It could happen to somebody in their 40s. It could happen to somebody in their 80s, right? So having a real keen awareness of this is extremely important. women are more than likely to live alone, with 44% of women age 75 and older living alone. Now, I don't know about you. To me, that's a problematic stat, right? That women are likely to live alone with 40%. And so, if we know that 44% of women over 75 are living alone, to me, that's again problematic, not just from a health standpoint, but from a mental health perspective as well, right? They may not have someone to provide care for them if they outlive their spouse or never marry or don't have children or family close by. And to all or not, we see a lot of those situations happen. Women also tend to need care for a long period of time than men. And so here's some things to consider. Average long-term care scenario for women is 3.7 years versus men it's only 2.2. And so these are stats that have been gathered, so you can kind of get to see the aspect of the importance of long-term care planning for women specifically, right? So caregiving is the second aspect, right? Women make up 61% of caregivers in our society and spend more time providing care more than men, right? And one thing I know is one of the questions we're going to ask later on here and moving forward is, who do I want to have administer my care, right? Who would I feel comfortable in having my care administered from, right? Due in part to factors like the financial sacrifice many women make by taking on the role of a caregiver, right? And I see this a lot where you have, traditional women and non-traditional women. Non-traditional women, obviously, being women that are in the workforce, executives and things of that nature, and having to alter their lifestyle because now they have parents or even grandparents specific in a long-term care scenario, and they're having to alter their lifestyle to adapt to that, whether that's financially and otherwise, right? That second bullet point, again, just want to reiterate, though, due in part to factors like the financial sacrifice many women make by taking on the role of a caregiver, they're more likely than men to end up in poverty. That's staggering. It's staggering. I want to have that hit home real quick, right? Female caregivers often develop their own health problems as a result of juggling working, family, and caregiving, right? And again, this whole aspect of what we've talked about in society lately about mental health, it's real. It's absolutely real. A lot of stress and not just financially but emotionally and just internal stress that, if planned for, can be alleviated much so. Okay. Women 50 and older who leave the workplace to care for an aging parent will lose an estimated $324,000 in wages and retirement savings, right? So by having a plan in place, by having a strategy, much of this can be alleviated, right? I'm talking about parents that are in their 60s and 70s. If they're blessed with great health, that's a great time for them to plan. Obviously, if you're in your 40s and 50s, these are things that are highly important to begin to start planning and having a strategy in place. Okay. Here it talks about fewer financial resources. It says women tend to have less earning potential, not save as much for retirement. Okay. As primary caregivers in our society, they're more likely to be impacted financially by having to take the time off of work, having lost wages, miss out on promotions, and ultimately have less money for their own future long-term care needs. So here's the other idea. Factors such as a spouse needing care first or passing away. Again, the mental anguish and the emotional stress that comes with that, right? And because women live longer and often need to stretch their money over a longer period of time, most long-term care claims, about 27% begin between ages 86 and 90. And so just finally, just sharing here, because of all these factors, having a long-term care strategy is critically important for women. And because they end up shouldering a lot of the burden that takes place, right? So I implore you, I behoove you to make sure that right now you start to consider, if you haven't done already, start to consider the impact of care moving forward for you and your loved ones. Very, very important. Because you're not only you're protecting your quality of life, obviously, yes, you're protecting assets and things of that nature, but you're protecting your dignity, right? Your quality of life. I touched on that earlier. That is probably one of the most important foundational things that we have in our life is the quality of our life. And so long-term care planning is a element of that. It protects your quality of life. And if you take anything away from today, take that away. It protects your quality of life. Okay. And so, as I was mentioning previously, we're going to actually look at the cost of care for a specific region. Now, you can actually do this. You can go to newyorklife.com/LTC costs with an S. So LTC costs with an S, newyorklife.com/LTC costs. And so what I did was I put in the city of Chicago. Okay. And it just says here home health care aides do not have monthly rates. In fact, we could probably look at another city too as well, just to kind of see if that is. I don't think that's uniform across the board. I think it's just specific to Chicago here. So here's some ideas for assisted living facilities, right? So for assisted living facilities, you can see here a monthly rate for a 2-bedroom, right? National average is $52.27. Look at Chicago here at $68.34 a month, right? So yes, that's the cost in today's dollars. Wonder what it would be 5-10 years from now. It can be very, very staggering. So I like to always say, look, you're not looking to, it is really virtually impossible to try to cover the 100% of the cost of care unless you have a significant amount of assets. And even if that, there are smart ways to self-insure, and essentially there's dumb ways to self-insure. And we're going to actually talk about those here in a minute, about some ideas that you can consider, right? So let's talk about those, right? Covering the cost of long-term care, right? Obviously, the expenses can add up, things of that nature. It's a lot of the unexpected, right? Now, obviously, there's some government programs in place, right? Like Medicare, right? So Medicare covers skilled care at nursing facilities only after a 3-day hospital stay. Covers the first 20 days in full and partial costs up to 100 days. But doesn't cover assisted living. It doesn't cover adult daycare, and custodial care is not covered, right, with Medicare, right? So very, very short duration. Medicaid, you'd have to spend down your entire assets, and in fact, up to only up to $2,000 is that threshold. So it says covers stay up to Medicaid approved facility based on income and assets. Again, you've got to spend down, and obviously for a lot of these things, coverage varies by state. Medigap, Medicare Advantage. Obviously, you can definitely look into these specific areas here. What is covered and what is not covered. If we self-funded, right, full cost falls on the patient and family, right? And so that could be problematic. The idea of long-term care insurance is to defray much of this cost, right? For pennies on the dollar, to defray much of this cost to a large insurance company, right? One that has the capacity to pay claims at the time that you're needing care, right? So yes, it makes a huge difference on who you get your coverage through. All right. So, and with long-term care insurance, as you can see here, for nursing home covers up to daily, monthly, or lifetime benefit maximums. Same thing with assisted adult daycare and home health aides. If I asked you predominantly where would you want to receive care, most of the people on this line would probably say, hey, I would probably want to receive care at home, just because it's familiar. At the end of the day, it's a feeling of family, it's a feeling of familiarity. Worst case scenarios, things like nursing home and assisted living, obviously. But, quality home care is vital, especially when we're talking about these scenarios, right? And so here's some resources too, to get more educated on Medicare.gov, Medicaid.gov, acl.gov/LTC. And of course, NewYorkLife.com/LTC costs. You can reference, like I said, either the monthly, the yearly. You can see here on the years basis. So, in fact, actually, Dr. Barbara, Maggie, so you can see here when we click the yearly, here are home health care numbers for on a yearly basis for home health care and for skilled nursing. It's just staggering. If you look at a registered nurse, the U.S. national average is 305,000, a little less than the national average. On the assisted living, it's obviously over the national average. Here it is for a skilled nursing facility in a private room, $131,000 a year, right? And as I mentioned, for women, it's about 3.7 years. For men, it's about 2.2, right? So again, let's just call it right around the average, about 3 years, right? 3 to 5 years is a good benchmark in terms of the benefit period that we would ultimately look at. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is maximize. If we're looking at long-term care insurance, we want to maximize the benefit for the shortest duration. That's essentially how we want to look at it. All right. But again, these are all based on specific areas. As an example, if I clicked on, let's just say, Los Angeles, California, right? Let's take Los Angeles as an example. So comparable, obviously a little bit more expensive on the private room. Much more expensive on the home health. So again, if you look at, let's look at Miami, Florida as an example. Big difference. Big difference. Obviously, big difference in standard of living, cost of living, I should say, not standard of living, but cost of living here in Florida. So again, this will just give you some food for thought as you kind of look at different areas around the country and ensuring that you have some sort of infrastructure in place moving forward. Let me take my stuff off screen share real quick because I'm going to search for another piece here real quick, and then I'll put it back on screen share. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Okay. All right. Maggie, can you see that?
Sure can.
Okay. So here's the aspect that I want everyone to consider when we look at the questions that we need to look at. All right. Number one, who would be in charge of your care? Okay. Would they be a full-time caregiver? Would they need to hire another caregiver? Have you discussed their role in your care? Okay. I want you to write those, at least write that question down, give that some thought. All right. Who would be in charge of your care? Right. These are very, very reflective type questions because it's a very emotional type of thing, right? Not just insurance, but the planning aspect of it is very, very emotional, right? Where would you prefer to receive care? Like I mentioned, the majority of people, it goes without question that people would want to receive care in home, right? What's the difference between assisted living and nursing homes, things of that nature, the quality of the care, the types of care, things of that nature. How much does it cost, right? how much guaranteed income do you expect in retirement, right? What are your current assets, and what assets could you use to pay for your care? And what are the potential tax and liquidity consequences if those assets are used? So we want to take all those things into consideration as we develop a plan moving forward. Okay. What's the best strategy for you? Again, having a conversation and taking all those things into consideration is the best bet, right? Whether long-term care insurance is right for you or not remains to be seen. It's, again, retrospective to your individual circumstances, and also your ability to qualify, right? It's very, very important that we ascertain whether, if insurance is the right thing to go for, then we should assess, your level of health and your ability to qualify for the coverage. Okay, so those are all things that we would need to look at as part of the strategy. Let me see if I can share a couple things. Obviously, this talks about some of the costs that we just went over. We talked about government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Some states offer long-term care state partnerships. And what partnership program is an initiative between federal and state governments to help you promote the purchase of long-term care, right? So by purchasing an eligible policy, you may be able to protect assets equivalent to your total benefit amount claimed if you needed to apply for Medicaid. And again, you can go to longtermcare.acl.gov. As part of the planning process, we talk about long-term care state partnerships. Here's an idea to consider too. What's the cost of waiting? Okay. When I look at, people ask me, well, what's the earliest time frame should I consider even looking at long-term care coverage? And I said, look, preferably around your early 40s. It's less expensive. Obviously, if you have the ability to qualify and get approved, I think that is tremendous. Long-term care premiums are lower if coverage is purchased at a younger age. Again, this is not reflective of end-of-life planning. It could happen to anybody. It could happen in your 40s. You could be sick and develop a sickness that eventually you would actually need care in home for a short period of time. And so I've seen it change lives dramatically for those that were ill prepared, and you certainly don't want to be that person, right? So if you ever considered long-term care, and you may say, well, you know what, I have considered long-term care in the past, but it was just so exorbitantly expensive. And here's some things to consider. So traditional long-term care is one way of looking at long-term care coverage. The other is very unique to the industry and has been quite popular in these times, where there's actually solutions where you could actually pay on a single premium basis, or for that matter, you could pay on a multi-year basis over a period of time, and kind of essentially, have a pool of money there for you if needed for long-term care. But if you never needed the care, the beauty about it is that you never lose it. That actually would go and pass on as a benefit to your heirs tax-free. So it can combine the element of a life insurance contract or policy and have some long-term care benefits as well. So if you ever needed long-term care, that money could go to pay for care. Same type of approach where we cover home health, assisted living, nursing, all those types of things, right? So very comprehensive type coverage. But the nuance that I hear a lot of is, hey, do I really want to spend X amount of dollars per year for something I may never need? And that's a very, very poignant statement. One thing that people could consider, and this is where I talked about, there's a smart way to self-insure, there's a dumb way to self-insure. Smart way to self-insure is actually is actually utilize monies that are liquid and could be earmarked for long-term care if ever needed, and reposition them from a taxable environment, like let's say, for example, a money market fund where it's in a taxable environment, and reposition those monies into something that can provide a tax-free benefit in the form of a life insurance death benefit. That's if you never needed it. Now, if you ever needed care, it could also provide a pool of money available. So that's another way of looking at in long-term care insurance from a completely different angle. One is traditional long-term care, where I'm paying month to month for a pool of money, kind of like car insurance. I hope to never need it. The other flip side is I'm leveraging my own capital for the benefit of having protection if I ever needed it. And if I never needed it, it's a benefit that can go to my family at the end of my life. So awesome. So the idea is this, right? We want to give you choice, options, and control. Okay. How you receive your care is up to you, right? And, how you pay for care is up to you, right? The biggest thing is having the understanding and the nuances available to you so that you can start to plan and prepare effectively, right? Don't be that person that, is ill prepared for the battle when the battle comes. The aspect is, look, do I want to safeguard my quality of life, right? What does quality of life mean? Quality of life could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be all these different attributes. But that's what we're looking for. We're looking to preserve and protect our quality of life, right? And then for however long we need to care, we want to make sure that we're able to have decisions and choices in how and where and by who helps us administer that care. So I hope this is all helpful. I hope this has given you some sort of insight and some sort of gauge into really being able to consider the aspect. If you've never considered long-term care before, this is now an opportunity for you to really get to a position where you feel like, you know what, this is information that I needed. And now I can actually take this information, talk to somebody, whether it's myself or anybody else, about your long-term care needs. And I'm glad, and I'm sure that I know I should say, I know you'll be glad that you did at that point. So I hope to see you guys soon, and hopefully this was very, very informative for everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to always share this insight with each and every one of you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. That was great information. I really appreciate how you brought out actual numbers of how much it would cost today versus how much if you were in a assisted living or any of those sorts. It's not just a lot, but we can see those numbers and really see what we have to be planning for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very, very poignant. I mean, when you look at the different market segments around the country, it's staggering. I mean, we looked at Los Angeles, we looked at Chicago, it's a big difference there. We looked at LA versus Miami, that's a huge difference.
Right.
So again, these are all, it's not, whether you pay for it with long-term care or not, it's basically, look, where do you want to receive care? Makes a big difference in the whole planning process.
And I mean, we keep wanting to talk about all of this planning because we want you to have options. There's nothing worse than being stuck in only one solution, and doing this will allow you to have options later in life as well, which really is a relief for you and your family.
Yeah.
Let me bring on Dr. Barb here.
Roger, this was really informative. I took a lot of notes. And what surfaced for me is it can be complicated, right? Long-term care, because as you brought up with some of the numbers, it depends where you live. It depends what kind of assets or liabilities you have already. It depends on what your current family structure is. It depends on, who else you may or may not be taking care of. So there's not really one easy answer, except to say you need to talk to your financial professional and really take a look at the whole picture. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. You know, and they should have the ability to have these conversations with you.
Mhm.
With whether it's myself or anybody else, I want you to be able to have these conversations. I think it's critically important that we don't neglect the impact of long-term care planning. You know, just as important as you would plan college, just as important you would plan your own retirement. These are all things that, again, we're talking about quality of life.
Yes.
We're protecting quality of life.
Yes.
Right.
And you bring up a very good point. A lot of times parents want to help their children with their college tuition or purchasing homes and things like that. When the reality is, I mean, it's tough, but you need to really make sure you're well protected first and foremost, for your own self care and future
Mhm.
care, before I think you start making other investments where there might not be a big return. So it's important to have these discussions with your both your family and with your financial professional.
Well, it's important also that people don't recognize that this is just end of life planning. It's not. It
Right.
can happen to anybody. It can happen to somebody in their 40s that just got sick. And with everything going on with our world right now, estate planning, life
Mhm.
insurance, those were very Google phrases last year.
Yeah.
Long-term care is up there. It's up
Yeah.
there on
Mhm.
the totem pole, and people are concerned about it because they have parents that are in these stages where, look, now they're shelling out their hard-earned dollars to go to help plan because their planning wasn't there before.
Mhm.
Right.
And now the onus is on them to protect their own quality of life. And
Right.
so please do not neglect this. This is an opportunity for you to really take hold of the narrative and start to now move in a different direction from what you thought long-term care was.
Yeah. And don't just disregard it as it's too expensive and take it off the table. Really have those discussions and really take a deep dive in understanding your own financials. And there's many products out there that can help alleviate the burden of long-term care.
Yep.
And I think speaking to someone like Roger is the person to really help you wade through a lot of that. So Roger is one of our purse strings approved professionals, that can help you answer your questions if you have them.
Much appreciated. Much
Sure.
Yeah.
appreciated.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Roger. We really appreciate it and really opening up this conversation of long-term care. Um, Feel free to reach out to Roger if you have any questions or questions about your long-term care. He's with the New York Life Insurance Company, so you can check his email at rsilvera@ft.newyorklife.com. He's also one of our purse strings approved professionals, so he's on our website, pursestrings.co. And we will be here again next Monday for another Money Monday with the 50 Plus and Fabulous group. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.